Everyone, good to see you this afternoon. I just wanted to real quickly just jump on here and have a quick chat with you. This is the first time this has happened to me from the Disgruntled podcast. I was approached by somebody out in the community, and they had seen a prior show that we had done about veterans receiving standalone legislation in our legislature here in Minnesota. But I don't believe that it's an issue that is just important here in the state of Minnesota, but everywhere, and then, of course, federally all over the country. And the question that they asked me was, well, first of all, why do veterans not get legislation? Which I think is a pretty easy question to answer. And how is it that veteran laws get passed while they're lumped in with other things? Which I think is also, on the surface, a pretty, I don't want to say it's an easy question to answer, but I don't know that it's going to surprise anybody. And so I thought, well, you know what? Maybe this is a good topic to quickly follow up on the channel, and so here I am. And the issue of standalone legislation for veterans issues is important because veterans have a whole different set of ailments, issues, dare I call them setbacks. I don't know if that's even a good word to use. But the point is that veteran legislation usually comes with a whole lot of junk, a whole lot of pork, if you will. And it's very rare that veteran issues get passed through legislatures or Congress, in my opinion and in my experience from what I've seen and read, even a couple projects that I have personally been a part of over the years. These things are usually packed with all kinds of other crap that is added behind the scenes, or it's in the small print. For example, the PACT Act that was just signed into law by President Biden a year or two ago. That ended up being, to the best of my knowledge, standalone to veterans. I believe that there was other things in the bill, in the law, within that legislation that were not just PACT Act, but everything in that situation, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure that if I am wrong, somebody out there will correct me, and that's good, because we don't want to have any confusion. But that was standalone. That bill, that law, was 100% veteran issues. Now, other stuff in the past there's I don't know all the examples, and so unfortunately, my confession to you is I didn't do a whole ton of research to give you examples, but if it's required of me, I will, because I know that they're out there. But there has been in the past issues that have passed through our Congress and our Senate and through various other states in this union that was meant for veterans but packed with other stuff, other tax law, or the passing of, some other. It usually has something to do with money. A large amount of money is going to some project or to some organization or some department for some who knows what. And so when we're talking about veterans issues, the attached pork is usually what drives the end goal. If it's egregious, I would say that there is a potential that there are here and there things that are packed in that nobody really cares a whole ton about. But the fact of the matter is that veterans issues, military family members and military members and veterans and all of those combined as one should not be clouded by any other issue in this country, in our communities. If you ask me, the issues of veterans and their families, soldiers or sailors or Marines or whatever, and their families are a standalone issue altogether, and they always should be, and they should be one of, if not the most nonpartisan issue in all of our halls of government. Because at the end of the day, these are the individuals that are supposed to be defending what you and I know to be our home. They're defending the documents that lay out how we as a country are supposed to live. The law and the law of the land, if you will. And so it shouldn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a Green Party or whatever. It shouldn't matter if you're a Christian or if you're a Jew or if you're an atheist or if you're Lutheran or Baptist or Pentecostal. It shouldn't matter. None of that matters. The documents don't say that it matters. The United States military doesn't care. If somebody from each walk of life that I just described walks into a recruiting station and they're qualified and they're a U.S. citizen, and these days, who knows, maybe you don't even have to be that anymore. But the point is, it doesn't matter what walk of life you are, where you come from, the color of your skin, the religion in which you decide to practice, the gender in which you identify as apparently, whether or not you hate your dick. None of that matters. If you are qualified to pick up a rifle, stand a post, or fix a vehicle, or hand out supplies or cook food or fly a plane or helicopter, whatever the case may be, they'll take you. And then the rest is on you. The rest is up to you. Can you meet and maintain the standards that are set forth? And none of those other things mean a hill of beans. And so for those reasons, amongst others, this is why standalone legislation for veterans is important. Because the military community and the veteran community is made up of populations of people that it's the biggest mixing bowl within this mixing bowl that we call the United States of America. Because the recruiters don't care who you are, what walk of life you are, as long as you're not a felon and you can meet the standard, that's all that matters. So, does it seem fair that when issues come up where laws need to be altered or changed, that we as a country or as a community or as a state or a county, whatever level of government these conversations are happening, does it seem fair that these conversations and the outcomes are one issue or two or three or four issues, but all for the same group of people? Because I believe what happens then is, if we have, let's just say the PACT Act, for example. If the PACT Act came out and within that bill, somewhere in the small print was yet another $10 billion for the Ukraine and yet another huge sum of money to fund some bullshit drilling operation off the shore of Antarctica or whatever the case may be, or to go to fund 10 litter boxes in 10 bathrooms in each school in America, whatever it is. I'm being facetious now, but whatever the case may be. But the main issue was the PACT Act. Well, those other issues are going to cause legislators or members of Congress or the Senate or whoever to say, nah, we're not doing that. We're not sending another $10 billion to the Ukraine. And how dare you hide that $10 billion in this legislation that's going to save the lives of veterans, if we do it right, hundreds and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of veteran lives. How dare you hide that in there? So no, we're not going to vote for that. So now we find ourselves in a situation where, yet again, the population of people who signed a blank check for up to the value of their life for this country are put on a back burner for care or for disability payments or home modifications or education or mortgage help or whatever the case may be, put on the back burner. Because now we have this bill that's meant to help them, but it's not going to pass because there's a bunch of bullshit in the small print that not everybody agrees on. And it happens all the time. I just don't think that most of the general public, and the pork thing is not just, it's not just veterans legislation. It happens all the time. And I have not a whole lot of frame of reference on other sections of government where it happens, but I'm sure it happens quite a bit. And I think that these legislators that introduce these bills and these laws, they bank on the fact that most people aren't going to read all of it because it's all in legal jargon. It's all, I mean, it's almost like it's almost like it's written in 1892 old Renaissance London English. You know, like, it's a 2024, the year of our Lord, and this, and blah, 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 blah. And nobody really understands what it means. You need to take a class to understand. Anybody who's ever, for example, been divorced or signed a legal contract and read it word from word knows exactly what I mean. Like, you need a lawyer's help to decipher this stuff. Or maybe I'm just that big of a dummy. But I think, folks, that where we come up short as a country that claims to be supporting veterans is that we have these conversations about the best way to help this population of people, but yet our legislators at times don't have the common courtesy to leave their greed for their projects or their things out of veteran stuff, because veterans is the most nonpartisan issue in all of government, or at least it should be. So people are going to be a lot more agreeable to sign off on stuff, which is what I think the thought process is. And maybe I'm wrong. And so the second part of the question, so I hope that answers the first part. And when I was talking to this person, I didn't go on for 14 minutes about it, but I was thinking about it for a lot more than 14 minutes. And so, like, I apologize because now all my thoughts are coming out of my mouth. So I hope it's not too confusing. But the second part of this person's question was, well, how do we change that? How do we change it so that there is no way for them to just hide stuff in? And unfortunately, I think the answer to that question is we can't. Like, I don't know that there's maybe the Supreme Court. I mean, what body tells the United States Congress how to vote? What body of supervision is it that tells the U.S. Congress and the United States Senate how they write their laws? And maybe there is something. And if there is, I'm going to be embarrassed because I worked for a member of Congress for a couple of years. Although I wasn't writing legislation, I was doing casework and dealing with constituents. But still, I don't know that there is an effective way to do that. Maybe it's the way that we vote. Maybe it's the way that we ask questions of these legislators when they're standing in front of us asking for our vote. Maybe we have to get more aggressive, and I don't mean like physically aggressive or violent, but maybe we need to get more aggressive about the questions that we're asking these people that are asking us for our vote to put them in office. And now, if it's true, after all, if it's true that elections are free and fair, which right now it ain't looking so hot, but if it is true, then we should be able to, over time, hopefully, vote some of those people out. But unfortunately, I don't know that veterans' issues are as important to the whole country as they are to veterans, their families, the supporters. You would hope that it's important to a large number of the population of this country, but I guess there's no way to really tell for sure. But what do? Right? All you can do is ask the questions, keep talking about it. But I think another interesting part of all of this is Jason and I have discussed it a few times, both on Disgruntled here and on the Richard Leonard Show over on Rumble, that we are now veterans as a population of people, as a culture of people. We now have enough numbers. We make up a large enough percentage of the United States population where we actually have the power not to steal an election or not to completely change the tides of an election. But I believe that we have enough numbers to at least affect the outcome of an election. And if we can get enough people on board with that, then it can become a message that's pushed out across this country. We should be asking questions of our legislators. How are you going to ensure that veterans are properly taken care of and not getting screwed over? And I don't mean taken care of as given a bunch of free handouts. Why don't we just start with getting adequate care, adequate quality of care at VA facilities? How about we talk about how to staff these facilities, because the low numbers, the low staffing numbers in VA facilities all across this country are really hurting the quality of care that veterans are getting in these buildings. The low staffing numbers in these buildings are also not doing any favors for the quality of the buildings themselves. It's hard to maintain all of these buildings and to keep them adequate and suitable and safe and not smelling like pee. It takes people. It takes staff. It takes money. Because you got to pay people. Especially if you want them to do a good job. Especially if you want people that aren't just there to fill a seat. So why don't we talk about that first? We got to start somewhere. I'm open to hearing ideas and having a discussion. I guess if I'm even worthy of being part of such discussion. But at the end of the day, who's more deserving? Who's more deserving than the men and women that made a selfless choice? All they're asking for is to get their diabetes supplies, check their blood, check your blood and check it often. Isn't that what the Quaker Oats guy used to tell us all? To check your blood. So, why don't we start there? Why don't we start with just staffing these places? Maybe that's a good place to start. Getting enough staff in these VA facilities so that people aren't overworked and quitting because there's no help coming. There's hiring freezes. They're being overworked, underpaid, and saying, screw this, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go somewhere else. And now we're raising minimum wage wages. We're raising minimum wages, which end up actually being charges to us, the consumer. So I guess that's true too. Why would somebody clean up shitters in the VA hospital for $18 an hour and then go flip Big Macs for $20 an hour? $2 raise. And maybe the benefits aren't as good, but hey, it's still $2 extra in your pocket. And at a time when everything's so god dang expensive, $2 extra in their pocket sounds a whole lot better than better health care coverage. Because they can go to the Minute Clinic or wherever, CVS or whatever it is. Urgent care. Yeah, I'll have a medical bill, but they can't. What are they going to take from me? My birthday? I don't make any money. You see, I don't think that this is exactly why this is important. Nobody thinks about the effect. Cause and effect. These people up top don't think about the effect. Maybe they do and they don't give a shit. I don't know. But I've been going on for 25 minutes about this, and I apologize for that. The point is this. At the end of the day, we need to have a group of people in positions of power that agree that veteran standalone legislation is the most helpful thing for veterans in all populations around this country. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you wore a uniform and you fulfilled your commitment and your obligation and did so honorably, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter what religion you practice. your service is just as meaningful as my service, which is just as meaningful as Jason's service, which is just as meaningful as Ty Bowie's service, which is just as meaningful as Ben's service. And we can just keep going on and on and on to people we know. If you did it honorably, your service is no less important than anybody else's. Doesn't matter where you went, what you did. The bottom line is that you did it, you signed the paper, you did what you agreed to do, and it's not out of line for you to ask the government to do what they agreed to do when you put a left hand on the Bible and raised your right one. That's it. This is why standalone veteran legislation is important. Thanks for listening. Sorry, got a little bit long. We'll see you on down the road. Take care of yourself.